I'd like to apologize for not covering the situation myself because I thought it was self-evident that this story was completely fabricated, completely pulled out of whole cloth, completely false, right? I thought that it wasn't going to go anywhere. It wasn't going to get any momentum. It would be debunked almost immediately. I knew the people involved and their history of credibility, okay? I didn't take this story seriously for a second, to the point where I didn't even really consider making a video about it. But, when I saw that it had been debunked today, actually, I realized that I do have an obligation to kind of cover this kind of stuff because people don't have as much autistic knowledge of the Nintendo community and what certain people are trying to pull as I do. It's my entire purpose, right? To talk about these kind of fringe topics. And for that, I apologize. I really should have been more on the ball with this. I really should have talked about this in a video. I'll try to do better next time. But Imran Khan, some nobody game journal on Twitter, released a statement a while back that Nintendo was scared of releasing a new Punch-Out game because of racial stereotypes. Apparently, he met someone in a bar and he told him this, and there was this like, oh no, we're not getting a new Punch-Out, guys. It was the fakest and gayest thing I've ever seen, right? Imran Khan has no credibility. I believe this individual was involved with like the Pokemon Stars leaks and has been involved with like a lot of like really fake Nintendo stories over the years. I look at the name Imran Khan and I immediately ignore it. I don't care what this guy has to say about anything because all of it is complete and blatant lies, right? And lo and behold, we have confirmation that this story was indeed completely fabricated. There was no backlash to the racist stereotypes in Punch-Out for Wii in 2009, like Imran Khan claimed. It was completely false. This idea that people had a problem with the game, that it was stereotypical, that it portrayed cultures in a negative light, all of it is completely false, as any fan of the game can tell you. Everyone loves the characters in Punch-Out. Nobody is offended by these caricatures of different cultures. It isn't, nobody cares, okay? People love the characters, Aaron Ryan, is he even an Irish stereotype? But Irish people still love him, right? For being such like, a goofball. Again, there is nothing wrong with negative portrayals of different cultures. There's nothing wrong with stereotypes. There's nothing wrong with being creative with different cultures, like what Nintendo has done with Punch-Out. There's just nothing wrong with these kind of portrayals in media. And more that's becoming self-evident when you just look at how different cultures actually respond to these situations in reality, because the people who are offended by these caricatures, the people who are offended by stereotypes, the people who are offended by racism are inevitably white liberals living in California, right? So there are people who were offended by Punch-Out, but they were not members of the cultures that were being represented. People like the fact that their cultures are represented in these games. They like the fact that Nintendo is able to make such creative, interesting character designs. They like the fact that they're being made fun of. Like, there's nothing, mean-spirited or wrong about that, right? Recently, I watched Mobile Fighter G Gundam, the Mexican episode where, like, Neo Mexico is just a giant sombrero. I've heard that Mexican audiences find that hilarious, and I believe it. Because I've seen it happen. What exactly is wrong about, other cultures taking note of, a general idea of what different cultures are like. That's how we get to know each other better. That's what we can get to know what to expect and what not to expect. Because, when you actually do meet these people and understand the culture better, you do understand that, like, there is more to the stereotype than meets the eye. And, everybody understands that. Everybody respects it. It's an important part of, like, cultural exchanges. But you have to understand, in order to understand someone better, you first have to get a first impression. And this is why stereotypical depictions in media are actually important. So you can so people get a general idea of what other groups of people are like, and then learn more if they're interested, right? There's absolutely nothing wrong with this kind of cultural representation in Nintendo games. But people like Imran Khan, people in that sphere, are desperate to try and gaslight people into thinking that there was some major problem with Punch-Out, that there was some major backlash towards it, that Nintendo is scared of different groups of people coming after them, when in reality nobody really gave a shit. Right. And I do think that is something that really needs to be taken notice of. Like, this is an example of someone who is clearly aligned with the political left, the Marxists, the SJWs, like the game journals, absolute scum. Someone who is desperately trying to undermine a classic Nintendo IP, whether it's for a story or whether it's to push a genuine anti-Nintendo agenda, whether it's like to try and gaslight people into thinking that, like, this is why we haven't gotten a new Punch-Out game in a while, right? Whatever the reasoning may be, like, Imran Khan released an obviously fabricated story to try and put Punch-Out in a bad light, to try and misrepresent Nintendo. And this is something that really needs to be pointed out and condemned.